Hi, I'm April Rimpo, and I've been doing a lot of paintings on Aquabord deep cradle panels. This particular one has an 1.5-inch deep cradle, and Ampersand, who makes the cradles, also makes floater frames. This is what the frame looks like, and when it arrives, it has, it's all appropriately wrapped. It has nice corners on it. This is a corner at the bottom, and this box contains all the hardware you're going to need. So we'll go through that hardware here in a minute. When you're actually ready to assemble your art into the frame, there's a number of things that you have to do. So I'm going to show you that in this demo. Let me just tilt the camera down. Actually, I think you can see fairly well, but I'm going to tilt the camera down just a smidgen more. There you go. More important you see this than me. So when you place your art in the cradle, there's a ridge. There's a ridge in the panel that it's hard to see in black on black, but let's see, this angle might work. There's a little ridge here, and your artwork is sitting in here, and this ridge provides the gap between the artwork and the edge of the floater frame. So it's fairly easy to have it centered. But before you actually do assemble it, they suggest that you take little pieces of the box itself. So I just took this little box that the hardware comes in, and I'll pull the hardware out here. I'll show you that later. And you can actually open this little box up, and I just cut with scissors little strips of the cardboard and made myself a whole bunch of these. And what I found for this is a 10-inch floater frame. The 6 inches, I was able to use just a single strip from the box and fold it on itself and use that as a wedge. I found on these slightly bigger frames that having an additional piece of cardboard from the box and sticking it in between the fold of the other two pieces, that got me about the right depth. So I'm going to insert these in the corners, and what it accomplishes is it holds the artwork in place, and I tend to put them kind of in diagonally. So there's one here. Eventually I'm going to fill them all the corners in, but I find that if I kind of work it back and forth, I can make sure it stays nice and square. I'm going to stand up so I can watch the gap and make sure, sounds like I'm getting on the train, make sure that everything is evenly spaced. And it's not an extremely snug fit, but it seems to be enough that it holds the artwork where you need it. Before you go and drill some holes through the frame for mounting hardware and other attachments. Now, what I didn't show you earlier, so here's the artwork with the little wedges that I've placed in each of the corners. So I've got one on each side of the corner, and it keeps it nicely centered. I then take the foam rubber that I get from boxes when I buy boxes to ship art, and there's always a centerpiece that you pull out that you insert the artwork in, and so I use those to lift the artwork up off the table and ensure that it's got a nice soft surface that the artwork is sitting on. Now, what I didn't show you earlier, and I should have, so I'll just tilt it up a little bit, is Again, black on black makes it tough, but there are actually already holes in the frame itself that you use to screw into the cradle on the painting. Now I'm going to double check one thing. Okay. I like to do this so that I have, this is just my own little quirk, I like to have the top of the painting up at what would be the top as I'm looking at it, so that I can kind of keep track of when I go to insert the hardware for hanging the wire for hanging the piece, I know where the top is. So that's just my own little practice. All right, so they provide you in these little packs that come inside this box that I showed you earlier. All the hardware you're going to need. It comes in, it does come with instructions, which I've found quite sufficient, but I thought I had maybe a few little tips that I have found useful. All right, so they provide you with the hook that you would hang it on the wall. They're very complete. The hook, of course, with its little nail. And the screws that they provide you, that you put in all of these holes, are actually nice little black screws, so they just blend in with the frame once they're in place. Now you can't just, or I would not recommend that you just screw them in as is, because the wood itself, I did have one where I didn't pre-drill holes, and not pre-drilling the holes, it did split on me, the wood split. So definitely recommend that you drill holes in. So now I'm talking about these holes are here through the frame, but then you need holes in the cradle of the painting itself. So in order to figure out which size drill bit you need, kind of a rule of thumb is to compare the width of the drill bit with the shaft of the screw that you're going to go in, and you want one that's pretty close to the center core of that screw. So I have found that I use a 1/8 inch size drill hole, but you know, you should evaluate it for yourself with whatever set of drills you have. I have this battery operated drill, so I've just added the drill bit here. Everything is aligned. That's what all the little cardboard did for us earlier. And the cardboard really, since you've got to flip it over upside down, you need that to make sure things don't shift. So forgive me while I drill. Okay, well those are those 4 holes. They also provide you with D-rings to attach in order to put your wire on. I personally don't, I prefer, they provide you with screw eyes that you then put the wire through. I prefer D-rings, so instead of using what they give me, I have D-rings myself. And for these frames, because they're fairly small, I usually use D-rings that just have a single screw in them rather than the ones with the longer tongue with 2 screw holes. I think they would overtake potentially the artwork, because I want the D-ring to be, almost to center, but I don't want it, I think the more holes you drill into the frame, the riskier it gets. So I prefer the single D-ring hole. And I try to be really consistent when I'm framing these to make sure I place those D-rings in about the same place every time for a given size frame. So let me pull over another piece that's also a 10 by 10 in one of these frames. And because, because I didn't write it down, I don't think, or if I did, I don't know where I wrote it down. I'm going to remeasure approximately where I put the holes for these. I think I remember, but just to be on the safe side. So I have a scale on this ruler that's actually in millimeters. So it's 15 millimeters. That sounds more like what I did. And it is just over 80 millimeters from the top. It looks like it's 81 or 2. So because it's a flat black frame, I take a white pencil that I have and I do that measurement. And I just draw a little horizontal line where the 81 measurement is, and then so while I have the drill out, I'm going to just go ahead and drill those holes too. Now these you have to go obviously through the frame because they were expecting you to use the eye hooks, and I'm not doing that. So now there's all kinds of sawdust all over here, so I'm going to run over to my trash can and get rid of the sawdust before I actually start screwing anything on. So just pick up the artwork. I'm still supporting the artwork because it's not such a snug fit with the cardboard to not fall out. So I'm supporting the cardboard and I will be right back. I kind of tip it over and tap it gently, but then I also blow in the holes to try to get the sawdust out of the holes as well. So now we're ready to assemble. So I take their little black screws they've provided, set them in the holes, which includes going partway into that hole I just drilled. And these are Phillips heads screws, which are the ones with a little cross. So you'll need a Phillips head screwdriver, and what I do is I just start them all. I don't screw any one of them down tight until I have them all kind of placed. That way it can kind of be double check that the holes are aligning and everything's looking pretty square, which I'm going to do real quick. Quick check here. Yeah. And once I think those are okay, then I screw them down. Now these holes that they've drilled into the boxes are recessed so that the screw will actually be level with the surface of the frame and not sticking out, which is really nice. Now because I choose to use D-rings instead of what they provided me, the D-rings are sitting above that level, but they do provide, and I think I'd already taken them, oh no, here they are. They do provide the little feet to put on the back of the painting. They provide two because traditionally you put one on each bottom corner. I happen to have black ones that I've purchased separately, and I actually put them on all four corners because of the D-ring that I have up here. I want to make sure this corner is also being supported against the wall and the D-ring isn't rubbing against the wall. Okay. You do want to make sure your screw is going in straight. If you have it at a little bit of an angle, it's going to actually cause potentially splitting of your wood, so you want to make sure that's pretty straight up and down. And then last step, well, 2 steps I guess. Here, I'll put on these little corner dots. I do usually wipe it off to try to make sure any residual sawdust is not on those corners, because then I don't think they'd stick very well. And last step is adding your wire. Actually pull the wire fairly taut and then put a little pressure up to make sure that when the hook is on there, it's still going to clear. It's going to clear the wood and be totally on the inside diameter of the frame. And once it looks right, then I go ahead and attach the wire. I like to use wire, the braided wire that actually has a little plastic coating on it. That way, it doesn't cut into your hand, and you don't end up with any of those little frayed wire edges. So if you can locate some of this, that's what I would recommend you use. Just makes it a little less painful with. You don't have to worry about your gallery owner getting stuck with wires either when they're hanging your work. These wire cutters just have a little grip at the end that I use to kind of crimp the end in place, and so it's not sticking out. Even though it's not frayed and it's not going to poke them, I'd rather have it neatly attached on the wire than have it poking out funny. At least with my hand strength, I can't crimp these up to the wire just with my hands. I need to have the tool to do that. All right, so now we just take these little pieces out of little cardboard guides that I inserted earlier. You want to make sure that when you cut the cardboard that you make it deep enough that you can easily get these out without them sticking too far beyond the edge of the frame. A little beyond the edge is good, is fine. When I use these same little corners when I'm doing the small 6x6 frames, which are not quite as deep, and they do stick out a little, and it seems to work just fine. And here is the finished painting and the back. I hope this helped you. Have a good day.